Dick.
Hello, everybody. It's currently 4:22 p.m. Central Time, like where I'm at. Tonight we have a new podcast episode after what feels like a month. Interviewing Galgothan, Jai, and Jarek from Golgothan, and that was a really sick podcast episode. Really hope you guys enjoy the new refurbished intro that Parker here helped me redo as far as the drums, and he put his own chops in there, to say the least. But evidently tonight we are going to be hosting Mr. Yowell because we weren't able to last time when we first interviewed the Archaic Epidemic, that being kind of the main band we're promoting tonight, alongside so many other bands that Parker has been a part of or has been the drum tech for. Like, this guy does a whole bunch of shit. He even has his own production company. Really, really cool shit. And I mean, come on, that's the reason why we are interviewing him. If you guys are familiar with the podcast formula we do one half, which is the people. And basically this episode, it might be the whole episode just talking about the people, but also the second half being us talking about the bands, the projects, the companies, the businesses, the creative mediums that these people are a part of. Because not only is this just about bands and band members, but we want to promote everything that they have to offer, everything that they've put their mind to. And also, hopefully, this far into the Anatomy podcast now, we hope to learn a little bit more about the business side of music, because it's like so incredibly secretive. But we'll get to that when we get to that. So, Mr. Parker, how you doing tonight, man?
Doing good, man. How you doing?
I'm tired. I'm tired.
Yeah.
I work, dude, like being back to work and working from home. That's the reason, people, that I've been able to upload on a daily basis, which is nice, but it's also really lonely, and like I can feel the weight adding back on. But enough about me. Tonight, obviously, we're learning about Parker. We're learning about who this guy is. We first got introduced to him really through the Archaic Epidemic, which is a band that we've had on the podcast before. We had Lucas, Andrew, and Ian on here last time. And Parker, he joined later in the cycle. Didn't you kind of join closer to the release of Disillusion?
Yeah, I think it was like June, so it wasn't too far into after they'd released Den, I think.
Yes.
I did a shoot. I did the Embracing video, and I'm pretty sure I joined up after that, or maybe I joined up right after Erebus. I shot Erebus. I can't remember.
Because
But it was June or July of last year, I want to say.
I think, because the thing is, too, people, we also I tried to improvise a premiere reaction in which I had all of the guys, including Parker here, on session with me. And basically I was listening to Erebus for the first time, and you could hear it kind of warbling as if it was underwater on their end. So that was pretty jerry-rigged. But it was really cool.
That.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
That was so much fun. And back then it was a lot harder when where I was, being in Phoenix, Arizona. Good God, it was already like 106 degrees on a daily average. Now, people, it's 95, which is actually a pretty big improvement, all things considered.
Yeah, tell me about it. We just rolled through Mesa and it was ridiculous.
You just drove through Mesa?
Well, not beginning of, it was maybe the first week of the Viart tour. It was we hit the Nile Theater, and
yeah,
Jesus, it was like over 100 the whole day, and oh God.
There's a reason I left, man. There's definitely a reason I left. I will give AZ one thing for sure. So with AZ, it has, I think, one of the best and intricate music scenes, speaking specifically for counterculture, because, dude, Linkin Park came from Phoenix, Arizona. We got Job for a Cowboy that came from Glendale, Arizona. And then, I mean, quite evidently, I haven't digged that much into the AZ local scene, in which we'll be doing that in the future when we have Michael from Apocalypse Pony on board, which I'm so excited for as well. Some of the, like, Job for a Cowboy, Linkin Park, those are two heavy hitters. And then we have bands like Apocalypse Pony, After the Calm, The Exiled Martyr. I don't know if you're familiar with any of those projects. Like a lot of really, really good ones for our scene. But to say the least, that's just speaking for AZ. Triple digit heat, baby. Like that's how we bring the heat, is with those triple digits.
Yeah, it's
But
brutal.
yeah, no, it's awful. That's really the reason I left. If it wasn't that hot, I would have still been there because that's where my family is. That's where my immediates are. That's where I was that's where was born and raised. There you go. And yeah, I mean that's the legacy right there. But by all means, I wanted to become more southern. I wanted to be surrounded by trees, so I came out here to Tennessee. But enough about me. Parker, I want to learn everything that you can tell people about yourself, like where you grew up, how you got into music, like literally every freaking detail you can grant us with those general topics in mind.
Yeah, I had a bizarre kind of start in this business. So I grew up in St. Paul, Minnesota. Moved out to Virginia in 07. And I had happened to, one of the bands that influenced me a lot when I was younger was Chimera. And when they lost Andals, it was like, I mean, I just couldn't believe that they put out a good record after losing him. And then I heard the self-titled with Kevin Talley and was completely blown away. And I was like, I want to play drums like that guy. And funny enough, Kevin lived in Baltimore at the time when I moved out to Virginia.
Mm-hmm.
And MySpace was big back then. So I sent him a message on MySpace. I'm like, hey, man, do you do drum lessons? Yada, yada, yada. And he was like, yeah, I do. And we got together and he started teaching me how to play drums. I realized very quickly that I had no idea how to play drums. And he was my teacher for maybe 5, 6 years or something like that. And I feel like I learned a lot from him. And the thing that he taught me that was the most valuable that I try to teach people that I'm teaching, or just encourage other drummers, no matter what their level is to learn how to teach yourself. Because I used to play a lot like him, and now there's certain things I do like him and certain things that I picked up from other guys along the way. But the reason that I had a kind of a strange start in the business is because pretty much right out of the gate, he calls me up one day and goes, hey, what are you doing next week? I was like, I don't know, nothing. This was in maybe like 2000. When was that tour? 2014. And he goes, yeah, so you're coming to see Suffocation. And I was like, yeah. I'm coming to see you guys and whatever, and looking forward to it. And he goes, well, I need a drum tech. Do you want to just stay on for the whole tour? And I was like, all right, sure. So literally the first time I ever went out on tour was working for Suffocation, and we were co-headlining with Cataclysm. And it was insane. That was my first tour ever.
Yeah.
So my perception of this business is a little bit strange because I got kind of thrown in to the deep end. And then from there on, went on to play for Jungle Rot. They were on that tour as well. I played for them on the Dying Fetus tour, ended up working for Cataclysm, ended up working for Fetus. I still work with Fetus. And then, pretty much everything spirals from there. Like I can link every single tour to a previous tour. Suffa, I met Cataclysm and I met Jungle Rot. I ended up working for Cataclysm, ended up playing for Jungle Rot. Jungle Rot tour, Fetus was on it. Ended up working for Fetus. Fetus tour, Thy Art Is Murder's on it. Now I work for Thy Art Is Murder. So it's like, it's kind of like this domino effect of just you meet people and hopefully they like you and hopefully they give you a call if they need something. And
yeah, exactly. And that is indeed one of the strangest, but also like the most lucky introductions to the scene that I think I've ever heard of, just because Suffocation, Cataclysm, like if I'm remembering this correctly, Cataclysm is the slam band from the Ukraine. No, okay, it's a totally
No,
different band.
they're from Montreal.
You know what? I'm thinking of Catalepsy, I think.
Yes, I think
Okay,
so. I think
there we
they're a
go.
slam band. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I don't know.
something
I don't
like
listen to
that.
metal anymore, so I don't know.
Oh, right. There, I mean,
Yeah.
yeah, there you go. But like going from just chain reaction, man. But
Yeah.
you were
Yep.
learning the craft. And I mean, obviously, bigger bands like this needed someone that they could depend on, and they decided to go with you, which is really, really cool. That must have been an honor to like work with all these various heavy hitters.
Yeah. So like honestly, like I just said, I kind of don't listen to metal anymore.
Right.
It's one of those things that when it kind of becomes your job, you just are kind of like, I don't need to spend my free time listening to more death metal. It is what it is.
Yeah.
Um, but Thy Art has been one of my favorite bands since Hate. Um,
Shit.
and it's just like, so, even getting to meet them briefly at these festivals and whatever, it was super cool. And then getting to tour with them when I was with Fetus was insane. Um, and then even crazier, Marshy calling me up a few months ago, going, "Hey, we need a drum tech. What are you
Yeah.
doing these dates?" And I'm like, "Nothing. I'm. Let's go. Let's roll." You know what I
Greenlit.
mean?
full
Yeah,
full
yeah,
speed forward. No, I get that completely
yeah,
because
yeah,
like no matter what, everybody I kind of see it like everybody has things going on, but they're like little tiny things. And sometimes you just have to grab that opportunity by the nads or it might never come again. And it's like, I really need to do this. And like, this would just be good for my career in general. I know,
yeah.
speaking of that, like opportunities that have just popping up recently back and forth. The Mental Cruelty, German deathcore band under now Century Media, formerly Unique Leader, Black and Deathcore, A Hill to Die Upon was like top 10 metal albums for last year. And, shit happened. Everybody knows what I'm talking about. And now holding an open audition for vocalist,
I have
which
no idea what happened. What happened?
basically Luca was caught in engagements of romantic and sexual nature with an underage girl. Yeah.
Whoops.
And unfortunately, out of nowhere, briefly after they signed to Century Media, she was like, "Hey, Luca did all this various shit." And it was all in German, so I had to like find translations for it. But basically, he used his charm, his age, his physicality, his just like him being fucking enormous. He used that to his advantage. And I think that's all I want to say upon that, just because there are so many people that are auditioning for this, including
They might be
myself.
the band that I tagged Ian in. I was like, "Get Ian."
That would be crazy.
That might be that band. Now that I think about it, that's
Shit,
kind of
yeah.
funny.
I mean, the auditions people are open until the 30th of July. And by the time we upload this, it'll probably be, well, Sunday. So in that case, you have, what was it, 6 days to audition. But yeah, there have been a whole bunch of great vocalists that have auditioned for that. And that's like definitely one of those opportunities that you grab by the nads. I mean, dude, I'm currently living in Tennessee. Most likely I'll be moving back to Arizona after the current lease I'm on is over. But but to take an opportunity for a band like that to possibly have the opportunity, have the reason, have the I don't even know how to say it except for reason to possibly travel to a European country in which I've been yearning for that since I was very little, just like cold, spruce trees, ossature, freaking Viking gods, myths about goblin witches that cannibalize your babies if you're not good to your parents and if you're not respectful to your parents. Like that's my kind of thing. And I've been yearning for that. I've been dreaming for that. It's another reason I came to Tennessee is to kind of get a sample of what it was like to live somewhere that happened to not be almost entirely a desert. And
Yeah.
that's one of those opportunities. That's what I was trying to say. Is like sometimes it's like, should I even like it's in Germany, this band's from Germany. There are so many other people auditioning. It's like, no, you gotta focus, isolate, and be like, but would this be a good opportunity for me? Absolutely. So then you
I mean,
jump for
location
it.
doesn't even matter anymore. I mean, like,
Exactly.
bands don't even 99% of bands, like at least one or two people don't live anywhere near each other. I mean, that's just
yeah, that's basically Infinite Annihilator in a nutshell. You got Dickie, who's in the US, but the rest of the boys, who, if I remember correctly, they're all in the UK still. So like,
I mean, it's basically every band. I mean,
yeah,
even if there's no like international members, it's like everybody lives.
in separate areas.
Somebody lives in Denver, somebody lives in Florida, somebody lives in New York. I
Exactly.
mean, it's a it's just it is
Exactly.
what it is these days.
Yeah. But and like you would think that because of COVID and everything that happened, it would make it more difficult. But now everybody's like, nah, I can send you waves, I can send you stems, I can send you guitar takes and the riffs
Yeah,
and everything, and boom,
I
you
mean
got a band.
the industry's been trending that way for so long anyway that it was kind of like that aspect of the industry wasn't really shaken up too bad. It was kind of like, well, most things are done remote anyway, so it's
Right. Exactly. But yeah, to say the least, people make sure if there's an opportunity that lies before you, whether with your friends, with your family members, with people out of country per se, which like mental cruelty, that's a big example. Just like, hey, literally anybody can audition, and we're just gonna have to fine tooth comb through hundreds of people that might want to join this band, might have the money, might have the will, the gall to decide to leave the US if it really came down to it. Like, take an opportunity, take it by the nads, and just be like, you know what, this might be pretty cool. And that's literally all you need. That's all you need, or at least that's a thing for me. I'm also a lot younger. I don't have a family like my old man would at my age right now. So it's a little bit different for everybody. Sometimes you're like, I have kids and I have a job that won't allow me to leave state, and then you got to devote to that. But other than that, like, let your dreams like blossom, let them fornicate, and just like have fun with it. Take a chance. Anyways, I wanted to, after talking about your chain link, just like domino effect career that you started, just like saying, yeah, fuck it, might as well. And you did that multiple times and it's ended up so well. I was curious on what basically a drum tech is, because I'm just a vocalist. Is like what's going on with that?
So pretty much, it's basically doing everything that you would do for your band minus playing a show.
Right.
That's the best way I can describe it to people. Is you're maintaining the instrument, you're changing heads, tuning stuff, setting stuff up. Um, there's a lot of, I mean, sound checking, line checking, doing all that.
Mhm.
But there's just a lot now. Luckily, my guy in Art, Jesse, and we don't necessarily have similar setups. I mean, I have a similar setup to him now because I have the smaller rig setup, but we play a lot of the same gear. So he didn't have to, teach me too much about what was going on. I kind of just knew the deal. So it was a pretty seamless, addition of me to the Art crew. So
Mhm.
basically what I do is get the drums in the venue, set them up, and marking your kit is a huge thing. Like, I see so many drummers at local shows with no markings on their kit, and I'm just like, how on earth do you keep your stuff consistent? Like,
Right.
there's no way in hell I'd be able to set up my kit the same every night. There's just no way. I have no idea how, how high was this stand? What even is this stand? Is this the crash stand? Is this the China stand? I don't know.
Right.
So marking your kit. We spent, I don't know, the first or the last day in pre-production before the tour, just marking the kit. Like, okay. I was like, are you happy with the way it's set up? And he's like, yep, cool. And then I mark it. And I basically marked it in a way that made sense to me because I'm the one setting it up, not him.
Mhm.
So if he's like, why does this floor tom leg say two? It's like, well, it doesn't matter because I'm the one setting it up, But that's basically what I do. And of course, during the show, I'm sitting there, staring at him. And if I notice something is not right, um, somebody's within a few feet of him to fix it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like if something happened that was a little more technical than that stand fell over, who's going to know other than him how to fix that? And who's even available? The sound guys at front of house, the lighting guys at his desk, our guitar tech is over in his, you know, guitar world, changing or tuning the guitars for the changeover and all that stuff. So who's even going to be there? You know, so it's basically just peace of mind during the show. One of the last shows I played, the first hit, the left crash, like for whatever reason, just like dipped, like the lock came loose and it just fell over. And there's nothing there's nothing I could do about it.
Mm-hmm.
So if that had been him, I would have fixed that within 10 seconds. And if I'd have had a tech, somebody would have fixed that. So I basically had, and since we go straight into the second song, I couldn't do anything about it until 2 songs in, you know, and that's not ideal, obviously.
Right. Of course. And I mean, yeah, there you go, people. That's what being a drum tech is. For those, I guess, who are, you know, curious about it, just like the fine tuning, being a technician for drums, which evidently I'm just like, oh, I have a Shure SMB7, I have a Cloud Lifter, I have a Focusrite now. So I'm definitely upgrading my equipment, but I would definitely say that that's nothing compared to like having to fine tune an instrument or even a drum kit. Like that sounds like such a pain in the ass, but it's all part of the craft. So it's like when you have bigger bands that are willing to bring you on tour because you know how to do that so well too. That I can't even imagine how much like I would freak out. I would be like, what? Like, you know, there are plenty of other people probably who could do this the same level as me, per se. But no, that's really cool. And I do appreciate you letting our audience know, for those of them who happen to not know. My next question would be, how did you like, you know what? How many band projects are you a part of? Because I've seen at least 4 or 5 on your Facebook feed, including the Archaic Epidemic. And I mean, hell, Alex Evenier, a recurring guest on our podcast, he has been a part of so many band projects, but like he even forgot about some of the other ones that he is a part of. And like we had to reevaluate that later in time. So at the moment, how many band projects are you a part of as a drummer?
3,
3?
4, 3 or 4, I think.
Cool. Yeah.
Something along those lines. And it depends on the band too. Like some of the bands I'm significantly more involved in than others. And some of them I just kind of show up and play drums. So I mean it depends on the band. I also do session stuff. Like if a band doesn't have a drummer and they need to hire somebody to play shows, I'll do that as well. I don't consider myself part of the band because I just am playing the shows. So I mean, there's various levels of involvement in bands and stuff like that. You know, like I said, some of them I just kind of show up and I'm like, how's the song go? All right, and then we just play it. Others I'm like writing the songs. So I have to kind of be involved a little more than just showing up and hitting stuff.
Right.
So it just depends on the band, but yeah, I'd say between 3, 4 plus session gigs and all that stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, there you go, something to fill your time. And just like when a craft, and drummers are the hardest thing for bands to find still, like, period. For all of time, it seems to be that
real.
drummers are the hardest thing to find. So it's awesome. It's definitely really cool to know someone who's like in the scene and just kind of dotting across multiple bands, and then also helping some write music. And then, I mean, obviously the Archaic Epidemic being your main priority, correct?
Yeah, I mean, I don't write for that band. So I mean, I just play drums.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah, cool. So with that in mind, basically I wanted to learn and kind of pick your brain as far as like obviously like Suffocation and all the bands you mentioned with your domino effect upbringing into the industry. What are like some bands that you were really into other than Thy Art Is Murder back in the day? If anything, just throw us like 5 different records that you were just absolutely obsessed with that got you into drumming as well as you do now.
Thank you. I would say Chimera's The Impossibility of Reason, the self-titled, as well, because of Tally. That was the first time I'd heard Kevin, which
Right.
basically sparked my whole career. Killswitch's End of Heartache was big. Do you want metal albums or just like any kind of rock
Metals,
albums?
albums in general, really.
Um, let's see. Linkin Park's Meteora was huge.
Hell
That
yeah.
album is still good. That album is so good. Um, that's 4. What else did I listen to a lot? I was a big Trivium fan.
Oh,
They
wow.
were one of the first bands that I heard that had kind of the combination of everything that I was into at the time, which was fast solos, fast double bass, cool riffs, harmonies, stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they kind of have a good sound marketing wise. Their marketability is like absolutely through the roof, which is why they're doing arena tours and stadium tours.
Right. Yeah,
But
naturally. No, that's actually really cool. And I mean, Trivium is definitely one of the bands at the top of the food chain now. I haven't listened to their album Court of the Dragon, but I feel an obligation to, just because the album cover is so sick, and because the band has like such a foot. Um, how do I say this? They have such a great standing in the face of metal and rock and roll. Like maybe
yeah,
more or less metal. Like rock and roll, I think of Guns N' Roses and shit. So maybe metal. But
and their drummer Alex is super sick.
yeah, of course. And I'll definitely have to be checking out Trivium. Which record did you end up mentioning from them?
Um, Ascendancy, I loved, and I loved Shogun. Those are probably my top 2.
Okay.
I haven't heard some of their latest stuff, so I don't know what that sounds like.
Right.
But
Yeah.
um, also, I mean, I'm gonna throw in Ashes of the Wake from Lamb as well.
Okay.
It was one of the first times I heard just some. I mean, I don't know how else to say it. Bizarre drum fills
Okay.
that Chris would do, and it's just um, very obviously drummers will know he's very triplet and quad heavy. Um, that was something that I had no idea what was going on at the time. Joey Jordison also was a
Yeah.
very quad heavy fill kind of guy, and those absolutely blew my mind until until I asked Kevin, "Man, what is this guy doing here?" And he goes, "Oh," and he just like played it and showed me how to do it, and I was like, "Oh, all right." It's a super simple fill, but it sounds incredible, which is why you won't find a metal album that doesn't have some form of that kind of fill on it.
Right.
Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, so those guys, those drummers and those bands, I'd say were super influential on me for sure.
Sweet. Yeah, absolutely. And definitely will be having you send me some links for the albums and everything after the session. That way we can post it down below. And for those of you who happen to be drummers or just who happen to want to plug into what helped this guy get everything started, what helped him become a better drummer, just the insane drummer that he is once again, we will be sharing those albums down below for you to check out, because who doesn't love music? Who doesn't love listening to even more shit than they already do? I know I do. I love it. So that being said, now I would want to ask, when did you end up starting Parkolepsy Productions?
Probably when was that Fetus tour? 18? I don't know, somewhere in 2019 maybe. Um, yeah, I mean, I just kind of figured, I might as well brand this
Mm,
just to keep everything under one roof, session work, producing, anything like that, instead of just kind of having it all over the place. So I was like, all right, well, let's just organize it, dump it into one little unit there.
Exactly. And I mean the same ideology over here. Like it's all about individualizing yourself and giving yourself a name so that future bands, future projects, they hear about the work that you've done for other bands and they have somewhere to go to. Like that's just good for business. Let's see. How many bands have you been able to cycle through Parkolepsy Productions? How has working under that roof and just continuing to do what you do as the owner of it, like as the main face of it, being that it's Parkolepsy Productions, like how has that helped you kind of improve your drumming and just really focus and just I don't even know how to hone in on being a drummer, being a session drummer?
Yeah, so basically you have to kind of mold your style to the project. You can't just take what you do and slap it on every band. It just doesn't work.
Right.
So you kind of have to play to the music and don't overplay. Like that's something that I would tell a lot of drummers. Just don't overplay. Like it's like it's cool. It's I don't know. It's like there's this fascination with how fast guys can play, and it's like who cares? Like anything over 220, honestly, like you can't really decipher what the hell's going on anyway live. I mean, it's just kind of it just turns into like this one note of just whatever, and it's like okay, cool. Like I'd rather see a guy play something that's cool and interesting, and I'm like, oh damn, I wouldn't have thought of that, instead of being like, well, shit, that guy's fast. He's faster than me. That's cool, but like it's like I don't know. I don't really get that stoked on it. So I think having to write stuff that you wouldn't write normally because the band isn't a band you would normally play in, that helps a lot. You can't just, if you get kind of an old school, like I just mixed and played drums on an album for a thrash band.
Okay.
And like you can't just be sitting there playing blast the whole time and like doing all this crazy stuff. It's like it doesn't work. Which is, something that I think my time in Jungle Rot helped me with. I basically just went, well, if this were a Jungle Rot song, what would I do?
Right.
Because it is a different style than say like what Archaic does or something.
Right. Exactly. And that's always really cool is like that, like pretty elongated answer there, for sure. And a great way to describe it, but just like adapting to every individual project that you're working with. And like it's crazy to think that so many of these bands, including Jungle Rot, have now joined the Unique Leader Records roster. And I haven't listened to their newest album yet, but if anything, following that question, and concerning Parkolepsy Productions and everything that you've done, what are some of the like to kind of give yourself some credit as a good drummer? What are some of your favorite records that you've been a part of?
Um, I don't know how much I can say about this.
Oh, okay.
Okay, I'm gonna say this. I can't tell you exactly what I did yet because it has not been officially like talked about.
Right.
But I did some work with Dying Fetus that I'm ridiculously proud of.
Hell yeah.
Hopefully, I'll be able to say a little bit more about that in the coming months.
Right.
That's probably the biggest thing I've ever been a part of, studio wise, anyway. And so I'm super proud of that, and just grateful they gave me the opportunity. I am super stoked about my new band's upcoming record because I wrote all the music, and I think that it pushed me out of my comfort zone of just writing deathcore riffs, and
Yeah.
I had to actually write songs that kind of made sense, and I couldn't just fall back on, well, I don't know what the hell to do here, so I'll just put a breakdown. It doesn't work like that when you're writing when you're writing metalcore. So
Right.
I'm super proud of that. That should be coming out this year. So I would say probably those two things at the moment are what I'm super stoked on.
And are you able to unveil the name of the metalcore band that you wrote a whole bunch of shit for?
Yeah, that band is called Beyond the Tides.
Beyond the Tides. Okay.
Yeah, we have 2 songs out. One of them, we got my dude Dan Watson on.
Yes.
Yeah, I wanted to do something different, and I thought, whenever a song is featuring Dan Watson, you're like, oh, it's just going to be over the breakdown. And I specifically picked a song with no breakdown to put him on. And, so I definitely wanted him to do something that was kind of out of left field. And most people were like, whoa, I didn't expect that. That was something totally different. I've never heard Dan do anything like that before. And I was like, good. That was what I was going for. I didn't want people to be like, oh, well, I mean, that was sick, but kind of heard that before. You know what I mean? Like, I don't want to like repeat stuff, It's like,
Yeah.
I just don't have any interest in doing that,
Right, which is super cool. And to say that like you're not only a drummer but also like like a multi-instrumentalist, right?
Yeah, I played guitar on all the Beyond the Tide stuff.
There you go. Like that in and of itself also just adds to the depth of who Mr. Parker Yowell is. And like the funny thing is I've been introduced to him through like such like they're definitely growing, the Archaic Epidemic, but like compared to Suffocation or Dying Fetus or even Jungle Rot, like definitely growing, at least in teenage level compared to, well, full grown adults and shit, which is like super ironic to think about. And now you're unleashing later this year a full on like, this is me, except for the voice.
Yeah.
Like most
Yeah,
of this
no.
is me.
Yeah.
Which
We're
is
not
super cool.
we're not going there, yeah.
And like that's always really dope to be in touch and to have people like you on the podcast, just because it's not always just about the vocalist. And I definitely want to decapitate the frontman syndrome when it comes to everything I create, everything I make and collaborate with musicians on. It's never all about just being a frontman, just knowing how to or knowing how to and all this other shit. Like it's all about the chugs. It's all about the heart, the heartbeat, what keeps the blood flowing, what keeps the bones sturdy. And that's what the Anatomy Podcast is. So definitely more than an honor to have you on the podcast. While you also happen to be in the Archaic Epidemic, which is a band that we posted before.
I'll touch on this later too, but I in their respective subgenres, I feel like I've got two vocalists that are at the top.
Yeah,
just of what they do, they're very different, but yeah.
yeah, absolutely. And I think that is a good way to wrap up the first half. And now we start discussing before time runs out for the first half of this session, because that will happen soon. We got a minute and 20 seconds. I wanted to kind of briefly touch up on your introduction to the Archaic Epidemic, like how specifically everything started with Andrew, Ian, and Lucas, and yeah, just like all the fun little pit stops, maybe the like this is a little bit different, like the reasons you ended up joining the band, all that fun stuff. You may begin whenever.
Basically, I think it came down to they just needed somebody who could play the parts, and I was like, I mean, I can play the songs. Let's go. Let's rip. And then they were like, hey, do you want to play some shows? I was like, sure. And the music's good, so it's some of the better stuff that I've heard, and so I was more than happy to play with them, and we've got some fun stuff lined up. So
yeah, absolutely. And it's probably going to decapitate the call. It's going to decapitate itself at any point now. But I kind of wanted to get your feedback on what we have yet to see from the Archaic Epidemic later this year, without revealing too much, of course.
Yeah. So Andrew's the mastermind behind all that.
Right.
So some of it I'm a little like.
Part 2. So, the mic is way too loud. Holy shit. Sorry. At least it sounded loud on my end. But migrating into part 2 of the podcast, and what will probably be about maybe 10 or 20 minutes of just us talking about your story so far with the Archaic Epidemic. Where we were last leaving off, it was more like, hey, can you help us drum? And you're like, okay, cool. Hey, can you join us for shows? Yeah, sure. So like, I guess since then, how has the story progressed? Like, how has your impression been upon being a part of this band, this sturdily growing band?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty much it. We're just trying to do more. Take what we've done, take the parts that work, throw out the parts that don't,
Mhm.
um, and just try to navigate through this mess that is the music industry.
Right.
And I mean, it's there's no blueprint to it. It's just kind of
Yeah.
a it's just kind of a kind of a crapshoot sometimes.
Mhm.
Um, but we've got a lot of stuff we're working on. I don't know, how much I can say about it, but we've got a lot of stuff coming out in the next few months.
Right.
That's the rest of the year, I would say. So yeah, there's a lot of fun stuff to look forward to from us over the next few months for sure.
Sweet. And if anything, concerning all of your other projects and all of your efforts as a drummer, as a multi-instrumentalist, as a producer with Parkolepsy Productions, what is your approach like differently with the Archaic Epidemic compared to everything else that you've done so far?
Well, with Archaic, I pretty much just play drums. I don't really, I'm not really involved in, writing any of the music or anything like that. I'll put down some drum parts and all that, but I don't write any of the music. That's all
Right.
Andrew. So I'm a little bit less involved, just from which is nice because I don't have time to do everything for every single band.
Yeah.
Um, so it's kind of nice, honestly, to just be like, "What are we doing? Cool," because it's like
Naturally.
I just don't have time to be doing the same, to be involved in that heavily of every aspect of every band. It just doesn't. There's just not enough hours in the day. Um, so yeah, I mean, I did write some of the drums for the new stuff. I basically just kind of put what I would do on the tracks instead of and Austin from Lorna did a great job on Disillusion.
Ooh.
But um, but yeah, I mean, this one is more me. It's a little bit. I'm trying to write some interesting parts that because nothing drives me more crazy than when I hear a record for the first time and I just know where it's going. I'm just like, oh, he's gonna do that. Yep, he did that. Because it's like
Yeah.
that's just too predictable. I don't like that. So I tried to if people think, oh, okay, he's gonna go here, I go, if they think I'm going that way, I'm going that way.
Right.
I don't want to just do the same old stuff that I've done on before. So it's been fun to write some different kinds of things for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And with the newer stuff, I guess, speaking just ahead of time, like a little time capsule going on here. What were some of the major musical influences, whether from bands, specific drummers, general genres, that you brought to the table when you were writing what you did for the new material?
I think it's just at this point, it's just me. There's not like a specific album or anything I can point to go, oh, well, I modeled it off of that or anything. I knew what I didn't want to do. Um, so, but I think at this point, I've just kind of been molding my own style, which was obviously heavily influenced by Kevin Talley.
Yes.
But also, uh, just playing non-metal stuff. Like 9 times out of 10, when I sit down at the drums now, I'm not playing metal.
Yeah.
I mean, people would be shocked by what's coming through the headphones. And that's not to say that I'm playing the parts that are on the songs. Like, I'm just playing. If the song is at whatever tempo it's at, that's what tempo I'm playing.
Right.
And the parts don't even necessarily need to fit the song. You're just playing drums, you
Right.
know? I'm just trying to work on actually playing drums and not just playing death metal. And I
Yeah.
think that helped out when writing this new Archaic stuff. I was a little bit less pigeonholed into just thinking, okay, well, I got to play death metal parts, and it's like, no, you don't. You can do other stuff,
Yeah.
you know.
Absolutely. And I mean, when it comes to being a musician outside of being a metal drummer, outside of being a deathcore drummer like Austin, which shout out to him because everything that Lorna Shore has been
He's so
releasing,
sick.
yeah,
Yeah, he's
it's
so sick.
ridiculous. It's like either him for me, just speaking for drummers in general that are like top tier that I really respect and enjoy listening to, it would be Austin Archie. It would probably be I think his name is Luke Holland from Ocean's 8. No, that's Chris Turner. Chris Turner. Okay. Chris Turner from Ocean's 8 Alaska. Definitely Aaron Kitcher and Jay Weinberg. Like absolutely. Aaron Jay Weinberg Slipknot, Aaron Kitcher being Infinite Annihilator. Because they definitely introduced the faster shit. And as someone who is barely a bassist, mostly a vocalist, I'm like, wow, that's impressive, because I definitely fucking can't do that. Like, simple enough. And I mean, even what you do, man, even what you do, it's not something I can do, not yet. And then I think to drummers,
Yeah, me either. Most days, me either.
You're just like, the fuck was that, Parker? Like,
God, some of that shit is so fast. It's just like, why?
ooh, yeah. But yeah, and if anything too, because we've kind of like caught everybody up to your side of the story with the Archaic Epidemic, I wanted to kind of get into your comfort zone and talk about the music that you've been actually listening to, the bands, the genres, all that fun stuff. I want to hear this, man. Let's talk about it.
Dude, anything that's not metal.
So we talking like R&B, jazz, pop, like country?
I'm not a big jazz guy. I like pop. R&B is sick. I like okay. When I say I like country, I don't like actual country. I like the overly produced stuff that's essentially pop and hip hop just sung with a southern accent country.
Oh, I love
it. Actually, in terms of just sitting down and playing, Florida Georgia Line has the sickest tempos, because they're fast enough that if you want to work on playing fast double bass, you can. It's not too fast,
right?
But a lot of it's not slow enough that you don't feel like you can lay down cool grooves and cool fills, and they're just a fun band to work chops on. You know, it's like you don't have to worry about if you play a fill that sucks and you're like, oh, that didn't work at all. And they're easy to go, okay, I got behind there, I can come in on the downbeat, cool, move on. You know?
Yeah, exactly.
Stuff like that is super fun. I mean, they're essentially just a rock band anyway, so it's, you know.
Yeah, that's actually really cool. And like, I think what's really important about being a musician is just like being, because you're right. What you said earlier in the session, you're like, you do metal all the time. You don't really want to listen to metal. At least for me, that's not a thing. But I know that there are plenty of people who work at Subway or something, and they're like, I don't want fucking subs, man. I eat subs all the time. Or they're
exactly,
working,
yep.
Like they're working a construction company, and they're like, dude, I just actually don't want to do anything at all, because I do the most boring but important contribution to society ever. So when I'm not doing that, I don't want to fucking do anything. I want to be with my kids, or I want to be I want to be by myself in my apartment, and with like
exactly. I mean, it's you know, and it's not that all bands sound the same, of course, you know, right, because they do sound drastically different, but the core of it, when you break it down, almost every band is kind of the same.
Right.
So it's like I don't really get that stoked listening to like new insert band here. I'm like, all right, I mean, it's cool, like whatever. I don't know. I didn't get that. And it's not that I hate metal or anything like that. I still listen to metal sometimes too, but
right.
It's like,
it's not a regular thing for you.
I listen to metal when I need to write.
Yeah, exactly. When
you know, it's influence. Like if I have to write a record, I'm going to listen to Wage War. I'm going to listen to Archaic. I'm going to listen to Veil of Maya. You know, because that's the style that my band is in, and I have to come up with a bunch of riffs. And I'm like, well, you know, listening to fucking Lorna Shore is not going to help me, because it's just a completely different style, and it's like that's just not. It's not what we do, and it's just not helpful. So, you know, I'm going to put on Wage War and stuff like that, and whatever. But yeah, I mean, if I'm just chilling down at the drums, I'm probably not going to go on Spotify and be like, all right, Architects, go. You know, it's just, you know, I don't know.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's like when
nothing against Architects.
Absolutely not. Dude, the way that Architects has been, like, so many bands that I used to listen to, even in just high school, which it hasn't been that long since high school. It's only been about like, uh, maybe 5 years now, 5 or 6 years, which is crazy. And I haven't even really done anything education wise or career wise that would really just be like, oh, so now I'm like escaping this like little stalemate process, this little
Yeah.
standoff in my life. But I definitely would say that even back then, like Wage War, Architects, While She Sleeps, Veil of Maya, those were definitely some bands that I still listen to all the time, because I think I'm actually just obsessed, and I think I'm addicted to the craft that I'm wanting to pursue, just because I haven't released anything for the craft yet. And I'm thinking maybe once I have the opportunity, once I freaking just write in stone, just set in stone, and I release some music, I'll probably be like, okay, time for some Iggy Azalea, because I've never listened to that before.
That's what
Like,
it is, though, is you spend, so like when I'm in an album cycle, I mean, I'm spending, 12 to 15 hours a day on metal.
yeah,
And it's like you do that long enough, you're gonna be like, all right, don't talk to me about the new whoever. I don't care. It's like,
because that's on the clock, baby. Like when you're off the clock, you don't really think about that. You
yeah,
have
it
like
just
a
feels
whole
like
other
work.
side to you. Yeah,
Yeah, you're like,
exactly.
all right, whatever.
Which is an incredibly realistic mindset. And don't like absolutely do not feel like, it's not that I don't listen to metal, just like, because there are plenty of musicians I know who are in absolutely legendary bands that on the side they're doing like a little EDM project, namely Chris Paz from Shrine. Shout out to you, homie. Love you. Um, like he's a freaking DJ on the side, or speaking on the same band, their bassist, he's also the guitarist for like two other bands, including a one that happens to debut here pretty soon, I think. And not really discussing any other details, but I think for people who really like bands like Varials or Bound in Fear, and who are fans of John the Butcher, you're gonna really like this. And on the side, when he's not a musician, he's running a weed business. Like, there you go. Like,
That's a better business to be in than the music business. Much more lucrative.
yeah, that, and people in the music industry, it's like one thing I seem to have learned in the last 3 years, I would say, whilst actually really participating in the scene, getting this podcast started up, talking with bands, calling them my homies over time, because I'm like, yeah, these guys, they really give a shit, and like they're willing to talk to a small fry like me. So therefore, definitely calling them homies. Namely the Archaic Epidemic, Warm Shepherd, the Stygian Complex, and plenty more. Lucrezia, like shit, dude. The roster is growing. But before any of that, it's like I was just learning back and forth that, oh, I mean, Joe Barber from Fit for an Autopsy, he on the side runs a barbershop, Continental Barbershop, actually just down the street where you guys were playing on the Thy Art Is Murder tour. Continental Barbershop just being like literally right down the building, and it just happens to be on the outside. And when he's not doing music for Fit for an Autopsy, he's a freaking barber, bro. I was always so tempted before I moved. I'm like, you know what? I want to go get a haircut from Joe. Like, it's,
Yeah, Alex Wade does that too from Chapel.
oh shit, that's cool.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, there's barbers. Some people are tattoo artists. I think the coolest one I think I've seen recently, as far as a tattoo artist, would be Dane Evans from To the Grave. On the side, he does like flash art, and I think Signs of the Swarm was in Australia recently, and they like knocked into each other, and they're like, "Yo, dude, this guy makes 6 tattoos too. Check him out." And I'm like, "That's cool." And with that in mind, it's like, even if you're if you blah blah blah, even if you are in the music industry, it's really good to have something on the side that you can do too, that you enjoy, that happens to not be a 9 to 5, hopefully eventually. Like,
Yeah. Yeah,
that's the
hopefully. Yeah.
that seems to be the key. So I think the last question, the last little bit of brain picking that we're going to do tonight with you, Mr. Yowell, is asking you a pretty important question. And I'm going to start doing this with bands from now on, folks. So definitely stay tuned. But as a musician, as a producer, as a session drummer for so many bands, for someone who has worked with as many big shots as you have, what would you say is the most important thing for new people jumping into the industry? What's the deepest secret you could offer to new musicians trying to jam their way in and make it?
I mean, there's so many, man. I mean, there's so many. I would say understand it's a business.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just it's it is what it is. Yeah, I mean, understand it's a business. There are there are other things I would say to musicians, like play to a click track. Can't emphasize that enough. Learn to play to a metronome, please.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a million things. Study other bands.
Yeah.
I'm not saying like steal their riffs or anything like that, but just see how. Look, why is this song successful and why is this one not? There's a million things that go into being in a band and promoting and doing all this stuff that people don't know, that people don't see. And like I said, it is a business. At the end of the day, it's a business.
Absolutely.
And
and basically, like, from what I've understood so far, just most definitely speaking from the bleachers, it's important to just continue making connections. It's very important to continuously make friends, but also keep it business when you can.
Yeah, networking is huge. Don't be obnoxious, but like networking is big. Staying in touch with people is big. I mean, we kind of touched on it, but I did luck out that my first tour was suffocation. So
Yeah.
I already had, like, at the end of that month, I already had something on the resume that was pretty decent, and it was like when Cataclysm needed somebody, they were like, oh, well, who do we need? Oh, get the guy that was with Suffo.
Yeah.
It was like just them knowing me was a big deal. And like you said, just networking and making connections. That's
Right.
how I've gotten literally every gig that I've ever had. It just being in somebody's contact list of, well, who do we call?
Call Parker.
That's over half the battle. It's just getting your name to be the one that people are like, well, who the hell do we call? Call that guy. I mean, that's just a big part of the big piece of the puzzle, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would definitely say that up to this point on July 22nd, currently 5:30 p.m., that is definitely how I came in contact with the Archaic Epidemic, had them on, and now at this moment have had the entirety thus far of the Archaic Epidemic on the Anatomy podcast. And I think that is a great place to wrap up the podcast. Thank you to everybody who decides to stop by, decides to listen to this. I do apologize that it almost was a month since our last podcast session, but naturally, with me working a job 33 minutes from home for most of this year thus far and not having a car, eventually, it complicated things. It complicated the continuity, the consistency of uploading, the creative sides of the channel, really. But hopefully from here on out and until the end of this year, we will have at least a dozen more podcast episodes. But that's definitely reaching for the stars right now, just because we have yet to concrete dates. We have yet to concrete times. Half the time during that process, like, people are just like, oh yeah, I have to go to the store, or I had to walk my homie's dog, or something like that. And then, shit happens and it's not able to happen. And you're like, fuck, and you have to reschedule. But we will be as consistent as possible. We will get as many bands as possible on this podcast. Let us know on Spotify, because you guys are now able to reply to questions that I'm leaving and all this other stuff. Most of the thumbnails are updated. It's a whole brand new shebang through Anchor. For anybody who wants to host a podcast for free, be sure to go through Anchor. Like, I was doing Podbean for a long time, $100 a year, and for no reason, like distribution to more apps and stuff. So that's mainly the reason, but also money. I don't have it. Like, so definitely leave a reply, ask us questions, ask the bands upcoming questions such as Violent Impregnation, Body Snatcher, which is super cool, and plenty of other projects we'll be hosting. But thank you, Mr. Parker Yowell, for deciding to jump on the Anatomy podcast, offer us a little bit of insight on what it's like to be a drum tech, what it's like to be a drummer for multiple bands, and what it's like to be a metal drummer who also just really doesn't listen to metal that much, unless if you're on the clock.
Yeah, that sounds about right, man. Yeah, thanks for having me, man. It was a good time. Got a lot of new music coming out. I've got some stuff coming out is today Friday? 2 weeks from today, I've got a single coming out.
Yeah, from Beyond the Tides, correct? Or
yes, sir.
sick.
Yep.
So yeah,
third single Hollow comes out August 5th.
Hell yeah, man. So in that case, people, be sure to tune in, stay up to date with Beyond the Tides, the Archaic Epidemic, Dying Fetus, and plenty of other bands here in the near future. Thank you all and have a great night.